We welcome you this evening to MCC of the Blue Ridge's Good Friday service. We're glad you can be with us in spirit. This is a very important part of Holy Week, and I look forward to sharing with you once again the thoughts and words of Jesus from the cross. One of my good clergy friends, Ken Martin, posted a quote that said, "This is the day when my heart rests in knowing that with God, the worst thing that happens is never the last thing." Would you pray with me? In the loneliness of Good Friday, we come to you, God, wondering how to find your will in the midst of tragedy. All the grief and sorrow we have known is rekindled at the cross. The pain is more than we can bear. Where can we find any meaning in all this? Thorns and nails and bitter tears cannot be your intent for your children. Whatever happened to love? Where is truth to be found in all this? Silent God, answer our cries. I'm going to be sharing with you in a few moments the 7 last words, last sayings of the cross. But I'm going to ask you to try to imagine yourself in the crowd, there at the cross, feeling, experiencing, hearing these words from Jesus.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
Luke chapter 23, verses 33 to 34. When they came to the place called the Skull, they nailed Jesus to the cross there, and 2 criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Jesus said, "Forgive them, Father. They do not know what they're doing." They don't know what they're doing. They don't know. They, who? The they who killed Jesus? It's so easy to name others, to blame others. The Romans, the crowd, Pilate, Herod, Caiaphas, they all played their part and conspired against Jesus, or simply followed orders to maintain peace, to keep Jesus' kingdom from infringing on theirs. And yet, where are we when Jesus' kingdom infringes on ours, on our peace and our order, on our prosperity and our security? Yet compassion was the first word that Jesus utters. He intercedes for us before God. Compassion that called him into being in his mother's womb. Compassion that compels him to the cross. Compassion that brings incredible, unbelieving grace. Compassion that echoes through the centuries. Compassion that cries out from the cross. A word of forgiveness. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. The second word from the cross, Luke 23, verses 39 to 43. One of the criminals there, hanging there, threw insults at Jesus. "Aren't you the Messiah? Save yourself and us." The other one, however, rebuked him, saying, "Don't you fear God? Here we're all under the same sentence. Ours, however, is only right, for we're getting what we deserved for what we did. But he has done no wrong." And he said to Jesus, "Remember me, Jesus, when you come as king." Jesus said to him, "I'll tell you, this day you will be with me in paradise." How much are we like the first thief, full of anger, full of hate because we suffer because of the evil of others? How much do we want God to snap fingers and make right what we have made wrong? What have we allowed others to make wrong? How easy is it to cry, "Save us," and to rail against God when there's no magic cure, no miraculous recovery, no legions of angels to take away the pain and bring wholeness. Yet there is goodness. There is a cure for the brokenness of our world, a cure that does not promise magical solutions, but promises that the brokenness is not the end, and that when all this is over, when the suffering is finished, that final word is not torture and defeat, but life. Life springs out of the ashes, life transforms, and is fulfilled in paradise. To the compassionate thief, to the one who could still recognize the good in the world, to the one who tried to comfort and protect that good, to the one who sought good, comfort was given. A word of salvation. Today you will be with me in paradise. The third word, John chapter 19, verses 25 to 27. Standing close to Jesus' cross were his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Cleopas, and Mary Magdalene. Jesus saw his mother and the disciple he loved standing there. So he said to his mother, "Woman, here is your son." And he said to the disciple, "Here is your mother." And from that time the disciple took her to live in his home. Who can grasp the grief? The grief of Mary watching her son suffer? The grief of Mary watching him die? And who can grasp the grief of the son who must see his mother mourn? What gift can a man give his mother? What can he offer when he's gone? How can he help her, hold her, comfort her? Woman, here is your son. A word of relationship.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
The fourth word, Mark 15, 33 to 34. And when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" All the agony of that torturous day, the lacerations of the scourging, the chafing of the thorns around his head, the convulsions of his tormented, dehydrated body, as it hung in the heat all day. Nothing reaches the depth of anguish, the cry of desolation. My God, why have you forsaken me?" Jesus, who found his purpose and strength in the presence of God, who was sustained by the immediacy of his relationship with God, and who endured all by the tangible power of God, always at work with him, always a center of vitality and peace, found himself totally alone on the cross. Jesus, whose very being was God, found himself utterly, absolutely despairing. In these words is the central mystery of the crucifixion, which cannot be fully comprehended. That there is no despair so deep, or evil so overwhelming, or place so far removed from joy, light, and love, from the very heart of God, that God has not been there before us, and where God can meet us and bring us home. The word of abandonment. The fifth word, John 19, verses 28, John 19, verse 28. After this, Jesus, knowing that all was now finished, said to fulfill scriptures, I thirst. The day wears on. Seconds stretch into minutes, which stretch into hours, until there comes a point when time can no longer be measured, except in the gradual weakening of the body and its ever more insistent demand for that substance which is so vital to life, so foundational to all things, so basic to existence as we know it, water. Water to moisten a parched mouth, water to free a swollen tongue, water to open a rasping throat that cannot gasp enough air, water to keep hope alive, to keep life alive just a few moments longer. Water to a crucified man is life. O God, thou art my God, I seek thee, my soul thirsts for thee, my soul faints for thee, as in a dry and weary land where there is no water. Perhaps Jesus remembered these words from Psalm 93 as they went through his mind as he was so thirsty. And a thirst for life is a thirst for God, a God who promises streams in the desert, mighty rivers in dry land, and living water to wash away every tear. Here at the end of it all these promises seem far distant. And yet Jesus, feeling forsaken by God, still clings to the memory and the hope of life. A word of distress, I thirst.
Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Were you there when they crucified my Lord? Oh, sometimes it causes me to tremble, tremble, tremble. Were you there when they crucified my Lord?
The sixth word, John 19, 29 to 30. A bowl was there full of cheap wine mixed with vinegar. So a sponge was soaked in it and put on a stick of hyssop and lifted to his lips. When Jesus had received the wine, he said, it is finished. What a sigh of relief. What a cry of deliverance that finally, after seemingly endless pain and gasping torment, it is over at last. The suffering is ended, the ordeal is finished, and nothing remains but the blessed peace and the absence of all sensation. When all there is pain, its ceasing is the greatest blessing of all, even when its ceasing comes only with death. But Jesus' cry was more than just welcoming the end of pain. It was more than joy at the deliverance death brings. He does not merely say it's over. He says it is accomplished, fulfilled, achieved. Jesus' cry wasn't a cry of defeat and despair. It's a cry of success and triumph, even at the moment of death, that the race has been run, that he has endured to the end, the strife is over, and the battle is won. Jesus' cry is a cry of relief, to be sure, but also a shout of victory. The work I came to do is complete. There's nothing more to add. A word of triumph. It is finished. The seventh word, Luke 23, verse 46. Then Jesus, crying with a loud voice, said, Father, into thine hands I commit my spirit. And having said this, he breathed his last. It's the end, the very end. The end of the ordeal, the end of the suffering, and Jesus alone on the cross, tortured, exhausted, abandoned by his friends, feeling forsaken by God, gasps for a last breath and gathers the strength for one more final cry. Why would he choose to speak so close to the end? Why would he muster that last energy he had to cry out with a loud voice? Couldn't God have heard his thoughts? Unless God wasn't the only one intended to hear, unless his voice was pitched loud so that we too might hear this final dedication of his soul. A dedication that made it despite the pain, despite the mocking, despite the agony, despite the sense of horrible aloneness that he felt. A dedication made to God before the resurrection, before the victory of the kingdom, before any assurance other than that which faith could bring. Jesus entrusts his spirit, his life, and all that he has given it meaning to God in faith. Even at the point of his own abandonment, when the good seems so far away, he proclaims his faith in God, and the darkness cannot overcome it. A word of reunion. Father, receive my spirit. If we were gathered together in the sanctuary, I would say, please leave silently. Please go home and contemplate the words and actions of Jesus on the cross. But I never can stop right then. I need to remind us that we are Easter people and Sunday's coming. God bless you. Hope to see you at sunrise.